So this is our laundry room, and when I come in here from the shop, I normally have to trip over a big pile of shoes. I got to do something about that. So I'm going to build a shoe rack, and I think I'm going to do something special for this. It doesn't need to be fancy. This is a laundry room. It doesn't need to be fine furniture, but I got to have a solution. And to kick it off, I run over to SketchUp and I draw up a few plans. I made it pretty easy for myself because all of the boards except for the seat will be the exact same dimension square. I've got a bunch of leftover oak from my last project, which was the bed, and so I'm going to try to use up as many of the smaller pieces of that and maybe mix in a few large pieces. So I'll cut those down to size. I'll plane one face and one edge to get everything nice and flat, and then I'll take that over to the thickness planer to get everything to the same thickness, and then get it on the table saw to cut it down to the final width. And then I change out my blade to a crosscut blade. I get out my crosscut sled and I start cutting down all of the small pieces and the long pieces to the right length. I am going to use the domino to join everything. So here I'm just laying it all out and placing marks where I need to put the dominoes. Instead of dominoes, you could also just use a doweling jig and just put dowels along those same marks that I made for the dominoes. Using some dogs and my bench, I set up a quick holding jig to hold all of the pieces so that I could put dominoes in the ends. And here I'm just going to do a dry fit and assemble everything to make sure that it all works together. And now for a quick real-life shoe test. Make sure that the hiking boots fit in there. And it looks pretty good. And now I'm going to glue everything together, and I'm starting with the front and the back frames, and then after that's dry I'll be able to put in the cross pieces to connect those two frames together. And while the two frames are drying, I'm going to do a little bit of sanding on the other parts. I've got my new Festool sander as well as a boom that I just put in, and I have to say this is a million times better than what I had before. I had a cordless Makita, battery powered Makita. My hand hurt after it. It was usually ran out of power after about 15 or 20 minutes. I started to slow down. It took forever. This sander has a 5 millimeter per session, so it's quite a bit more than my Makita, but it's a huge difference compared to what I was doing before. I need to put a chamfer on all these parts to break the edges. I could do that on the router table, but I decided it's pretty fast just to do it with a hand plane. It takes just a few minutes to do this and get through all the parts. It appears that I made a little bit of a mistake yesterday when I was gluing these up. I think this one shifted as I put the clamp on. This one shifted just a little bit this way. And so now the two frames are not aligned. So the problem is that when I start to put the cross pieces in, these two pieces will work just fine. The cross pieces will fit in. But because this one's off just a little bit, the cross piece is going to go like this. When I clamp it, it's going to go straight, and that means I'm pretty sure one leg will end up longer than the other one. It'll end up, I think, a little bit crooked. So I'm going to use a very thin trim saw to cut this off, move it down a little bit. I'll see how much room I have. I don't think I can get another domino in there. I think what I'll have to do is from the outside drill a hole and put a dowel in, and then fill the hole with a plug from the same material. It should work, I think. I think that saw is thin enough that it's not going to create a gap, but let's see. Now with that piece cut and it did not create a gap, it actually looks pretty good. I can go ahead and clamp both of the frames together to make sure this time I get it in the right place, and then I'll go ahead and drill a hole through the end and put my dowel in. I didn't really like the look of the round plug on the outside of the legs, so I used a chisel and put in a square patch. And after a little bit of math, I realized that I could just use two of the cross pieces together, starting in the middle, and work my way out. And I could use those to mark out the position for the dominoes. And then I use my combination square to transfer those lines from the top rail down to the bottom rail. And then I mount the rail onto the front of my bench, and I can put in the dominoes, all except for two of the dominoes. I can get two because the upright on the two ends of the rail is in the way, and I can't get around that, so I have to do that a little bit different. So to get those two end dominoes, I just measure the distance from the bottom of the domino to the fence, and I use that to transfer onto a board referencing from the top of the cross piece there. And then you'll see I just stand the domino upright against that board, and I can put in the last two dominoes. And now that both of the frames are complete and I've got all the dominoes in the correct positions, I can move on to putting the dominoes into the ends of each of the cross pieces. And some more sanding to get it up to 180 grit. I'm going to put a chamfer on the ends of each of these, so when it comes together into the frame, if there is any sort of little minute gap or difference, you won't see it because there'll be a chamfer there. So to do that, I'm going to do it on the router. I just gang all of these together with a clamp, and I can run one side through the chamfer bit and as one unit, and then I can flip it all around and do the other side and continue on until I get all four sides chamfered. So before I do the final glue up and glue all of these pieces in between the two halves, I'm going to go ahead and put some tape over where I'm going to apply the glue, and I'm going to go ahead and apply a couple of coats of shellac on both of these. I'll also apply shellac to these, and I think that will be a lot easier in the end rather than trying to get in between all of these joints with shellac. And it may also help to keep the glue, if I get any squeeze out, from sticking in between these boards. I'm just using blonde de-waxed shellac here. I put on a coat. I wait a few minutes for it to dry, and then I go back over it lightly with another coat. To make assembly easier, I'm going to go ahead and put all the dominoes in the cross pieces first, making sure that there's no glue on the faces of those, and then I can assemble those into the frames. And for the rest of this assembly, I'm going to be using Titebond 3, which has a much longer open time. And I definitely need that because there are so many pieces and so many joints to this. I got everything in except for the last two cross pieces. They were in the shop. I had to go and clean them up quick, but I had time because of that Titebond 3. It gave me some extra open time to deal with that situation. And I used every single clamp I own except for the smaller clamps. I think I definitely need more clamps. For the seat part of this project, I'm going to be using an older board, which I know has dominoes in it. So I'm going to play a little domino bingo here and see if I can reuse this and recycle this piece. Well, I didn't hit any dominoes, and I gave myself about 40 millimeters of room to continue if I did find a domino. I didn't. The bench will be 40 millimeters wider than I planned for, I think. I think I'm not going to continue with domino bingo. To attach the seat to the frame, I'm going to use something that I saw on Sean Boyd Made This. In an earlier one of his videos, he makes these little small clips out of plywood. I've got a domino slot already in the frame. You can see that there, and I'm just going to make some of those little clips and use those. Problem solved.